procrastinate, they overanalyze, and they don't actually pick up the phone and make the call to the estate agent to book a viewing. Some of our most successful mastermind students are people who have full-time jobs, or they're running a successful business, or maybe they've got kids and they don't have a lot of spare time. It's all about doing, and this is one of the biggest enemies of massive action, is procrastination. Thinking about something but not actually doing it. I've found in my 30 years of investing, the more action you take, generally, the luckier you become. We make our own luck by creating opportunities, by finding properties, by finding investors, and taking action on those. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Property Magic Podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about taking action, a massive action, and what exactly do we mean by that, and how can you do it, and how do you overcome procrastination if you're not actually doing the things you know you should do. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is you might have heard me talk previously about the massive success formula. Basically, if you want to achieve huge success, there are three things you need to do, and you need to do them together. First of all, you need to take massive action, which is what we're going to talk about today. In the next episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about the next element, which is doing the right stuff. And then the final part is consistency. So massive success is massive action times doing the right stuff times consistency. And if you do that, you will get massive success. Now, what is it that stops people from taking action? Well, I think there are a couple of things. First of all, sometimes people don't know what they're actually supposed to do. So I want to clarify some of the things you should do, but you might want to listen to the last episode of the Property Magic Podcast, in which I talk about the 5 steps you need to find better deals. And I go into quite a lot of detail exactly what you need to do to be finding lots of great property deals. So you can go and listen to that. But I just want to summarize a couple of the really important things that you need to be doing if you want to be building a cash generating portfolio. The first one is you absolutely need to find motivated sellers. And you can go onto Zoopla and Rightmove when you know what to do. You can look for the circumstance of sellers who might be more motivated, or use great software like Property Filter, which we buy for all of our mastermind and coaching students, because it's a great way to find great deals in your area. So if you're struggling to find deals, get something like that. It's definitely going to help you. But then the next problem is a lot of people find potential deals and they procrastinate, they overanalyze, and they don't actually pick up the phone and make the call to the estate agent to book a viewing. Now, I believe, as I shared last week, you should only go and do a viewing when the numbers really work and you think there's a good potential deal there. Especially if you're more experienced, we need to value our time and only go to properties where there's a good deal. If you're completely new to this, there's definitely some value in going and looking at properties because you'll learn so much from that experience. Now, by the way, I should have mentioned earlier, I'm not saying you have to do property all the time, 100%, far from it. In fact, some of our most successful mastermind students are people who have full-time jobs, or they're running a successful business, or maybe they've got kids and they don't have a lot of spare time. It's all about doing the right stuff, which is what I'm going to talk about in the next episode of the Property Magic Podcast. But let's go back to taking massive action. First of all, we need to find these motivated sellers. Secondly, we need to arrange the viewings. Then we need to be making offers on all the properties we visit. And then we need to follow up. And that's pretty much what I talked about last month. Now, a couple of other things we need to be doing as well. I think to get out there and raise money, which is an important thing for many people to do because most people run out of their own cash at some point, you've also got to raise your profile. So some of the massive action you should be taking is you should be posting on a fairly regular basis on social media to share your property journey. And you're not boasting, you're not showing off, you're just sharing what you're doing. So what are some of the things you should be posting about? Well, if you go and do viewings, you should do that. If you're going to property training or networking events, you should take a selfie of yourself and post that. If you are sorting out your refurb, you should take some before and after pictures. You need to show people that you are in this property game and you're making progress, because anyone who wants to work with you, they want to make sure that you know what you're doing. And the very fact you're educating yourself makes you more investable. So part of the massive action is you should be on social media, posting, telling people what you're doing. Now, some people say, oh, I spend loads of time on Facebook in all the property groups. I'm not sure that's such a good thing to do. A limited amount of time, yes, to find some good things, to learn some things, to comment, etc. But too many people spend way too long scrolling on social media, whether it be Instagram or Facebook, and that's not actually moving you forward. So again, you're not doing the right stuff, but we talk more about that in next week's episode. The other thing you need to do is get yourself out there, go to networking events, go to paid property events and meet other people. Push your comfort zone. Most of us, we don't like speaking to strangers, people we don't know. But the great thing at a property networking event or at a property training event, everyone there has got something in common. They're all interested in property. And so it's okay to go up to a complete stranger at those events, introduce yourself, start chatting to them. And here's what you need to do. Here's a specific action. You want to get their details from them. You want to give them your details. And if the conversation is going really well, you want to say, look, I'd love to speak to you more. Obviously, we're at a networking event, so we need to be connecting with people we don't know. But I'd love to have a follow-up call. Would you like to have a Zoom or go for a coffee or whatever it might be? So you need to suggest that you have a follow-up meeting rather than having a long conversation here at the network meeting. Because part of the massive action is meeting lots of people and growing your network. Then you need to follow up with those people. You need to have Zoom calls, physical meetings, because property is a people business, all about relationships. And if you want to work with people, you need people to know you, like you, and trust you. And that only comes with time. So you've got to be a little bit patient. You've got to put the legwork in. You've got to get to meet these people, take action in that way to build those relationships. Then once you're doing your viewings, you're making your offers, once you're building your network, connecting with people, following up, you should have deals and you should have people who can potentially fund those deals if you run out of your own cash. Now, on that note as well, something that is a big point of procrastination that people just don't do, and that is getting ready to be able to move forward to take advantage of great property deals as you find them. The reality is most people don't have a load of money sitting in their bank, but they might have a load of equity in a property. Maybe their own home they bought years ago, or maybe an investment property, or maybe an inherited property. And actually there's money sitting there, equity sitting there that could be released, that could be used as a deposit to go and buy more properties. So a lot of people know that, they're aware of that, but it means they've got to speak to a mortgage broker, they've got to do some paperwork, and they put things off, they procrastinate. And this is one of the biggest enemies of massive action is procrastination. Thinking about something but not actually doing it. So I want to recommend 2 resources that might be useful for you. 2 books that I've read and I recommend to all my students that really help you with this. So the first book is The Great 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. In that, Mel talks about we come up with all sorts of ideas. And what we should do is take action, massive action on that idea straight away, rather than thinking, oh, I'll do it later, because often we just don't get around to it. For example, we might walk past a property that's in our target area, it's for sale and it's for rent, and that could be great for an option, for example. And we think, oh, I must call that agent, but we don't get around to it. We forget about it. If we got our phones out there and then and called the agent and got some deals and arranged a viewing, it's far more likely we're going to get some success. Now, that particular property may or may not be a deal, but the whole point is the more you do, the more action you take, the better results you get. Sometimes people think people who are successful in property are just lucky. They happen to find the good deals. Well, I've found in my 30 years of investing, the more action you take, generally, the luckier you become. We make our own luck by creating opportunities, by finding properties, by finding investors and taking action on those. So Mel Robbins' The 5-Second Rule is the idea when you come up with something, rather than allowing your subconscious and your mind to talk you out of it, you talk back or you count backwards, go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right, do it. So you might get your phone out, right, 5, 3, 2, 1, do, and then make the call, rather than talking yourself out of it. The second book is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is a Canadian who is an absolute OG in the terms of personal and business development. In fact, Brian Tracy was the first personal development training I went to back in 1999. And actually, I had an opportunity to go to that training, an opportunity to pay extra to be a VIP and even pay a bit more. So I ended up on a table right next to Brian Tracy for dinner on one of the nights. And it was about a £1,500 investment, but it was amazing. It was great to connect with this complete legend and just pick his brain and be inspired by him. And one of his many, many books, I think he's written almost 100 books. One of them is called Eat That Frog. And it's about getting things done, taking action on things that you don't necessarily want to do. And I'm sure we all have an action list, and we all have things on there that we're putting off. We're not doing for whatever reason. Maybe we think it's going to take too much time. We think it's going to be too much effort, or we're worried about what may or may not happen. So we just put it off. And it's called a frog because it jumps from one action list to the next action list. Whereas what Brian says is if you do that frog, that difficult task, and if you eat it for breakfast, or you do it first thing in the morning, do the hardest thing first, then everything else on your list seems easy in comparison. So that's a great idea. Now, one of the other lessons that Brian talks about in Eat That Frog is about how to manage your action list and make sure you're doing the right stuff. But I'm going to save that for next week's episode of the Property Magic Podcast. But in the meantime, you might want to go and check out Mel Robbins, The 5-Second Rule, and Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog. They're both available on Audible if you prefer to listen to audiobooks, which might be a better use of your time. But those are 2 actions for you. And my final call to action for you is I want you to think about what I've shared with you today and work out what actions do you need to take? What should you be doing more of? And the final thing I want to leave you with is one of the mastermind groups that I was a member of. I used to fly over to Phoenix 3 times a year to Joe Polish's Genius Network. And when we go to those events, they'd have action lists and things we want to work on. But they also have a list we'd fill in every single time, which was the don't do list, or the stop doing list. Because the things you're doing right now, you're taking action, doing certain things that actually are not really moving you forward on your property journey. And I'm going to talk more about that in the next episode, because obviously it's all about doing the right stuff in the next episode. But in the meantime, think about what do you need to do? How do you need to take more action? How you can take this learning, and what are you going to do as a result of listening to this podcast? Don't just listen to it. So that was interesting. What are you actually going to? What's the action you are going to take? And I'd like to recommend 2 actions for you. The first one is make sure you've subscribed to this podcast. If you're watching the YouTube channel, you can hit subscribe, you can like this video, and make sure you hit the bell icon to make sure you're notified anytime a new video comes out. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching this video. As ever, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest for skill. And on the next episode, I'm going to talk about the second part of the Massive Success Formula, which is RS, which is doing the right stuff. But that's next week. See you then.